So this weekend just gone, we celebrated 3 years from the time that we embarked on our massive journey from the place that we once called home, and we travelled all the way to Guatemala. So during our celebration, we asked each other what were the favourite experiences or places that we had visited. And I thought I'd share those with you because I thought the responses were quite interesting, and if nothing else, it might be worth just letting you know some really cool places that we came across in our travels, just in case you get the opportunity to go there. But before I do that, I just wanted to show you, the other day I was walking along this road and I came across this beautiful tree, which I call it the Brazilian grape tree, which I understand that's what it is. I have no doubt that it has a more correct name, but I just wanted to show you these because I'd never seen anything like these until I came here. Hola! And I think that is just amazing. Now, we have one of these trees on our property. Not as big as that, but it was on my wife's wish list when we were looking around. They've got like a white flesh. They're really beautiful. They're like a cherry. So that's a bit of a side issue, but I really wanted to show you that because I'd never seen anything like it. And yeah, we love them. But anyway, getting back to the topic, I started off by asking my daughter what was her favourite experience since she's been on the road. She immediately nominated the time that we went out on a multi-leveled ferry on Lake Nicaragua, which sails just out of Granada. Now this ferry is like an old barge that this cool American guy has transformed into this incredible ferry with massive engines on it, and it just putters around this huge warm lake. The food on this ferry is amazing and the beer is cold, and we just spent a long lazy afternoon with a friend jumping in the water, which I later was told may have the odd bull shark in it, although I don't think they've been spotted for quite a while. But that didn't stop us. We were in the water for most of the afternoon, and it was really just kind of a magical day. So I'm not at all surprised that she nominated it. And it's something that if you went to Nicaragua, you really can't miss it. It was really just one of the coolest days that we had had. So I totally agree that that was hugely high on the list. And then it was my son's turn. And I was a little bit surprised, but when I thought about it, it's actually a very worthy nomination. He said that his favourite day was when we went to Iguazu Falls and the nearby bird park in Brazil, just over the border from Ciudad del Este. It was really spectacular. And when you go into Brazil, for some reason, it just feels totally different. The flora and fauna, and just got a different vibe. I'm sure we'll get back to Brazil. I totally understand my son's enthusiasm about that day, and hopefully we'll get back there. Not in the very distant future, hopefully, because that's how much we loved it. We also really enjoyed Ciudad del Este and just hanging around that area. We just thought it was cool. And then to round it off, I asked my wife where was her favourite place or experience. And I was not surprised when she nominated Laguna de Apoyo in Nicaragua. This laguna is situated in a retired volcano, a caldera that is now full of water. And because of the volcanic activity, it's still like bathtub temperature warm, and just beautiful clean water in this deep bowl in the middle of the Nicaraguan jungle. This amazing resort where it's just really casual, and great prices. And we just spent a few dreamy days there bobbing around on a tyre tube, talking to some really awesome foreigners from all over the world. And then when it came to me, well, to be honest, I had to agree with my wife, and it wasn't just because that's the wise thing to do. That was one of the coolest days you could ever spend on that warm laguna, surrounded by that beautiful jungle. It really doesn't get any better than that. So there you go, 3 places that we have particularly enjoyed. And interestingly, none of them are actually in the place where we've ended up calling our home. For us, that's no great surprise, because although those places were just stellar, this has never been about just finding somewhere cool to live, because in many ways the place that we were living was cool to live when it came to the scenery and experiences that you could have there. We were looking for a number of other things, a number of other features that a place could offer. And thankfully, we came to Paraguay and we found that place. It's not to say that Paraguay doesn't have some beautiful locations, because it definitely does. The Jesuit ruins and some of the places just around this district, and I have no doubt many others, are just so beautiful, and it's in many ways a very undiscovered country, or underdiscovered. I think back to Nicaragua, and in many ways it's just so etched in my memory. Had things been a bit different in some ways, well, that's where we would have ended up, but it's not to be so. But the great thing is that living in Paraguay, we're within decent proximity to not only those countries, but many others that we haven't even ventured into. So it's very exciting to look to the future and realise that we could spend the rest of our lives, when time permits, going to really unique locations without too much drama. We can get to several countries pretty simply from where we are. And that's one of the standout features of Paraguay, is that you do have that ability to get around and access just vastly different countries. So that alone, I think, ticks a box for Paraguay. In addition to all the other things that I talk about on this channel, I still hold fast to our belief, at least for us, that Paraguay has been a really solid choice when it comes to a place to put down our roots. So apart from celebrating our favourite places, we've been busy project managing our soon-to-be home. We're getting along well there. There's always challenges when you're working with others and getting construction completed. There's a lot of lessons that we've learnt along the way, but in general we're really pleased with the way things have progressed. It's a work in motion, and there's nothing that we haven't taken on in Paraguay of any significance that we haven't learnt something along the way, and that's the way it rolls. You've just got to be prepared for something that you aren't prepared for. And in that way, you can be kind of strangely prepared. I think the best way to describe it is to just hold on, but hold on loosely. Because one thing's for sure, at some stage you're going to hit some sort of hiccup. But the good news is, whatever problem you have in this country, there's usually some way around it. You can usually find a workaround in some way, shape or form. And that really extends to just about anything here. And although I don't want to go into too much detail for reasons that I'm sure a lot of you may sense, I would say that that's a really great feature of Paraguay, is that if things arise, hola, YouTube. If things arise, there is usually a way you can get around it. And to have that sort of flexibility anywhere is quite rare these days, because one of the things that the people who are running this circus seem to be very intent on is making things quite inflexible when it comes to all sorts of choices and decisions that we want to make about our lives. Well, thankfully, at least as of this date, it's not so much the case in Paraguay. And just bringing it back to our project, the really wonderful thing is, whenever you're doing a building project, a construction project, you're always going to hit points where you go, oh, I thought you were going to do it this way, but you want to do it that way, or we wanted it like that, but you're thinking about doing it like this. But as I always say, with Paraguayans, you can always talk. You can always sit down and, you know, try and figure this out. Well, I say always, I'm sure there's exceptions, but definitely it has been in our case. And it so commonly has since we've lived here. You know that I always say with Paraguayans, I love them, and I really do. And it's one of the reasons I do, because you can have conversations about things that I think if you were to try and have these conversations in many other places, it could become kind of dynamic or perhaps sketchy. But here, Paraguayans generally are very open to sitting down if you're not on board with something, or if you need to express a concern or an issue. We at least have always experienced Paraguayans to be generally affable and easy to work with. So you can't ask for more than that. So there you go, just a short video just to let you know about some of our favourite places and experiences. I hope that perhaps you might get an opportunity to visit these places also, or if you have, please drop us a line and let us know how you found them. They've just added to the great memories that we've got over the 3 years that we've been away. And when I think about these things, I think, wow, how different life would have been if we hadn't experienced those things and all of the other things that we've done over the past 3 years. So although it's been a long haul, a long 3 years, and we've had to really put in a lot in order to get to this point, I wouldn't have it any other way. It was the best 3 years in some ways of my life. And I know that goes also for my family. And one of the really wonderful outcomes of it all has been when I sat down with my children to celebrate our 3 years. I had conversations with them not only about those experiences, but about their views on the world and what's going on and where they see themselves and where they see their future. And these conversations were so expansive, and I was so blessed and happy to know that my kids had opened their minds in ways that they never could have had we not made the journey. So at least for this family, it's been the best decision of our lives, and it's actually exceeded our expectations. When we left, we had pretty much one thing in mind, and that was to find a place that hadn't fallen into the absolute lunacy that we believe that place had descended into. So that was pretty much the extent of the plan. And I know that there were more than a few people out there that said, well, you idiots, you're never going to make it. You'll be dead in a year. But I'm glad to report that reports of our demise are drastically over-exaggerated. Sometimes I think to myself, it would have been awesome to have fired up the camera and maybe started our channel earlier. But in other ways, I'm kind of glad that we didn't, because we were still working ourselves out, getting our head around the enormity of what we were embarking on and just trying to make sense of it all. So I'm pretty pleased that although those experiences were cool, we kind of just kept them to ourselves to a large part. And it's only since we've come to Paraguay and really been sure about what we're about here that we wanted to share that information. I think that was also kind of unintentionally intentional, because, you know, making these videos and going to cool places and speaking well of them, you can do that every day of the week. But when we first arrived at some of these places that I've previously spoken about, maybe for the first month or two, we would have said, this place is great. But it's not until you're there for a while that you truly get your head around the realities of what it'd be like, not to stay there for a period of time, but actually put your roots down there. And that's what I see quite commonly on a lot of videos, is that someone will go to a place for a month or 2 or 3, and all of a sudden they've got their shingle up as a relocation expert and telling everyone that this is a place you need to come next week and it's going to be cool and you can really set yourself up there for the long term. I don't think you can really confidently rely on that. You really need to be in a place for a significant period of time, put your roots down and really get a feel for the place. The weather here is wonderfully variable. At the moment I've got 2 jumpers on. Tomorrow, I don't know, I could be cooking, but we're really enjoying this bit of a cold snap. You never complain about cool weather in Paraguay, because the one thing for sure is it isn't gonna last. And before we know it, we'll be cooking away. So we look forward to that too. So until next time, take care. Ciao.
Fue en otra vida, otro lugar. Nunca pensé que me llegara a pasar. Yo solo sabía de buenos amores. A mí me enseñaron buenos valores. Vulnerable andaba buscando raíces. Lo que encontré fueron heridas, cicatrices. Creer en ti fue un gran error. Me endulzaste con tu teatro traidor. Ahora soy dueña de mis amores. No voy a perder la vida entera en tus temores. Hoy me levanto con mi alegría y te devuelvo todo el dolor que te pertenecía. Mientras pensaba que estaba enamorada, en tus telarañas quedé atrapada. Tus palabras al principio fueron